What is up? I am Miguel Antonio, and this is the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. On today's episode, we have health coach and musician Rusty Osborne. Rusty is passionate about helping musicians live their happiest and healthiest lives. It was the musician lifestyle of late night gigs and partying that finally took its toll on him, and it sent him down this journey of finding his own healthy path, and then eventually led him to start helping others do the same. And with his company, Find Your Total Health, he has helped clients lose 700 plus pounds, and no doubt that number is going to keep rising. Now, if you're a musician, you've lived that late night gig life or that tour life, no doubt you're going to relate to some of his story of an unhealthy cycle that you can get stuck in. We also talk about breaking free to a better lifestyle. We talk about entrepreneurship, and then he leaves us with a great thought from Frozen 2 to take your best next step. It's a great one. Enjoy.
The Live and Create podcast.
I'm realizing like we have some similarities. Like we kind of done the music touring thing. We're also both on this kind of health journey thing. But there was something I discovered actually today. I was going through your Instagram. We both are in a small little club. It's a club of people who know the pain and the fear and the anxiety of waking up in the morning and not knowing where their guitar was because they left it at a venue and like that scramble. So I'm curious. So you left your bass guitar behind, and it sounds like it's almost a piece of how you got to where you are today as well. But I'm curious about what that was like for you to wake up after your venue, your bass is gone, and now you're having to like look at life like, how do I get this thing back?
Yeah, that was a hell of a day, man. It was a hell of a night too, obviously, and that's why I left it somewhere.
The good nights tend to lead to hell of a days.
Oh yeah. The night before, I mean, there was plenty of questionable decisions. Almost was arrested, should have been arrested, like one of those kind of nights. And it's because the band that I was playing with that night, we had an early slot. Normally I was playing later, right? So you got to be on your game if you're going to be playing the headline.
Right. Yeah, you can't drink a ton during that time. Yeah.
Right. But if you're done at 9 p.m. and there's free booze, like, oh, well, why not?
Right.
So Wake up, heads pounding. What have I done? Okay, I'm going to get my stuff together. I'm going to get my instruments together to go teach because I had a teaching gig at the time, right? Just doing the private lessons thing out of a school. And the bass isn't there. What do you mean it's not here? Like, it goes right here in this spot in the closet. Like, what did I do? And it's not even my bass, man. I borrowed it from a guitar player. Ooh. And I'm like honestly shitting myself at this point. Like, what have I done? I called the venue we played at. I drive around everywhere in town. I'm calling my friends that I remember vaguely seeing, and like, okay, well, we picked these people up over on this corner, so I must have moved it out of the car to put up the back seats. Like, I'm driving around looking for it in gutters. Like, where the hell is it?
My anxiety is rising just as you describe the story. It's like
the whole day, like, I thought I hit rock bottom when I woke up and felt like I did. But then as it goes on, and I have to see that guitar player that day because he's teaching at the music school with me, and I have to pretend like I didn't lose his bass.
Right. Like, no, we're cool. Bass is
everything's great. I just wanted to bring my P bass today instead of that one that I normally play.
Just kind of feeling this vibe today.
Right. And finally get home after I vow to quit all my vices and shape up for good. And the bass is sitting next to my front door. What?
Wow.
Are you kidding me? My neighbor said that, oh yeah, I found it. It was next to your garage. And I when I went to work this morning, I grabbed it and I put it on your balcony.
Nice.
Like, oh, so I freaked out all day. I deserved that freak out, man. I really deserved that much anxiety because I just went so far off the deep end again.
Right. So there, for you, it was kind of a pattern at this point, like the late nights drinking and all that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And when you're playing in a band that's like one of the 8 nights a week kind of things, we're basically touring around Southern California, but staying close enough that we can go home and sleep at night, which is awesome.
Right.
But we're playing so much, all the food is free, all the booze is free. There's always things to do. Plus I'm working all day. And so if I'm teaching all day and then I go play at night, I'm also kind of blowing off steam, and so you get in this pattern of hustle and play the gig and party and then wake up hungover. Oh, okay, let's do this again over and over. And yeah, man, it was just not good for me. And I would wake up because I wanted to be healthy, right? So yeah, this just playing into the cycle that you mentioned. Like, I'm sure you've done this too, but you wake up like, oh, I partied again last night. I better punish myself with a run.
Yeah. Well, and one of your videos you mentioned like doing an ultra run like after binging all night. Like what does that look like? How do you even pull that off? Because I'm into endurance sports. I'm doing like Ironman California in October, that kind of stuff. I'm like, how the hell do you binge all night and then run an ultra? Like what were you doing, man?
Training on both ends. Like I had a personal trainer at the time. And because I had started my health journey a bit, me and my drummer we're crushing it at the gym with this trainer. He's just like wrecking us every like 2 days a week. We'd go Tuesday and Thursday, but it was intense, so you're recovering the rest of the week.
Right.
And we also partied a lot. And so I was working out hungover every time or still drunk.
Yeah. So you're coming in and you're like, I'm already kind of here. I'm
right. And so because of that, I kind of I've got this tolerance to booze, got the tolerance to all these terrible foods. And then I'm like, honestly, really fit, but still really fat because I was doing this to myself.
Gotcha.
So I figured running, man, if I run that much, like I've got to lose weight.
Right. No matter how much beer you're drinking the night before.
Yeah. Right. And so the last like ultra that I did was just a couple weeks before the rock bottom moment that we just covered.
Okay.
And my trainer said, okay, here's what you're going to do, because my buddies that are Olympic cyclists do this. You're going to have your pregame like energy shot.
Okay.
So you're going to take your shot of whiskey or whatever your favorite booze is. Mind you, like the ultras start at 5 a.m, right? I'm about to run up a mountain.
So he's saying a shot of whiskey before your ultra marathon.
Plus a painkiller, like whatever your go-to, like Motrin or Advil or something. Plus your favorite caffeine. So of course I chose like a 5-hour energy shot. Like let's do this. I'm not here to mess around.
I feel sick to my stomach right now.
I know, but dude, I'd run this one mountain up and down so many times in training, and the best time I had was a little under 4 hours on this run.
Damn.
And I crushed it in 2.5 hours.
Wow.
No,
that's
problems.
Amazing.
It was awesome, but I still had another 30 miles to run that day. It didn't work out. I got pretty hurt.
and you're done. Are you familiar with Rich Roll at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and his story of going through the swimming, that's actually him and David Goggins are the ones that got me into the endurance stuff. And hearing his story of struggling with drinking with swimming, and then how that ultimately, it's like you can only do some of those things for so long. And it's just, I think even for us, like on tour, we realized real quick we couldn't eat like shit anymore because we felt horrible every weekend. Then we started touring longer. We actually had crock pots and would cook shit like soups and in our hotel room eventually. So we learned that part. And that made us feel so much better. But the habit you talked about is like this drinking thing. That's my old bass player, he was part of the podcast, and we were lamenting our lives on the road where like it was great, but I always felt like at nighttime I needed wine or whiskey or something to wind down. It's like here I needed this chemical to bring me down, and then in the morning I needed a fuck ton of caffeine to get me back on the road. And it's like I picked up that cycle that even when we stopped touring, I just was stuck in. And then you start pushing. It's like I can't keep doing this. I don't feel good anymore. So you have this athleticism that's kind of off the charts. Like most people probably can't imagine running for 2 hours, let alone running for 2 hours up a mountain. But you recognized that you still weren't really healthy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes from these, like you mentioned, these cycles, and whether or not your actions are that intentional, your body and your mind is still looking for routine every time. So you want to figure out how to put in some routines that are helpful, because you're going to fall into a routine anyways. That's why some people have a routine of a ton of coffee in the morning, ton of whiskey at night, like I did. Right. That's why some people have a routine of not doing almost anything with their day. Wake up, get on your phone, right? And then you're on the TV watching Netflix for how long, right? Or you could have the routines of doing helpful things, bringing the crock pot on tour. Like we bring our Instant Pot. We've got an Instant Pot that we bring
Awesome.
with us always on travels. Like you could cook anything in that,
Yeah.
And so because of that comes back to the routines that I had at the time, which just so everybody knows, my life isn't a shit show anymore. Like I figured this out, right?
Yes.
That's why we're talking.
You broke free. You broke free.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I lost 85 pounds. I put on 25 pounds of muscle, and now I help other people do the same thing. And it comes from experiencing this kind of shit and being able to learn from it.
Right.
Yeah. So I totally forgot what your question was because I just got so excited about that.
Really, I was just diving into this concept that you can be working out, you can be doing some of the things that seem healthy, but you're actually not healthy.
Right.
In the end, like there's other choices. But I like the thing you bring up with routines. Like no matter what, you're going to have a routine. I think it was Tony Robbins said something about like the time's going to pass no matter what. So it's you can be intentional with it or you cannot. Like in the same, right. I love that perspective though of the routines are going to happen. You're going to do things that are going to happen every single day. Are you being intentional to make it a positive change? For you, what were some of the first steps that you took to kind of break that cycle that you were in?
Yeah, great question. So running was part of it, right? At first I just was like, I remember sitting at work, I was working at some batting cages, right? Literally just like sell some tokens, go fix a machine once in a while, right? And I was overweight, and I mean, I was obese technically, and just done with it finally. Like, man, I got to do something. And so my first step was like, is there an app on my phone that'll help? I don't know. And I downloaded like 4 of them and just started using them. I started
What'd you
walking.
go with? What was the one that...
I got Fitocracy was one that kind of like gamified it. I don't know if it's still around anymore.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it was like you would log your workout and you get points or like gold stars or like whatever it was, and so you get medals for doing so many runs or so many workouts or whatever. So that kind of started it. And then I got MyFitnessPal. Like, well, other people, I don't know, they log their calories, right? Maybe I should try that.
Right.
So, which
That's
I found out really
started with the health thing. So I cut you off though. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Yeah. I just was going to found out that calorie counting really didn't work for me. And I was still obese when I was counting calories and I was walking and then running and doing all these things. That can work for some people in the short term to get it going. But as far as a sustainable picture, we found that it really isn't a sustainable practice.
What made it? I have my own opinions about it too, because I no longer did MyFitnessPal either. It was a good start. But I'm curious for you, what was it that made it unsustainable for you?
I felt like garbage when I was too few on calories. And because I already had this really built-in cycle of binging, right? Yeah. And I was straight up food addicted. I would crush it. I'd go 6 days of under my calorie limit. Life is good. And day 7, dude, I had so much food.
Bear claws and all sorts of shit. And
when you look at the week total, I'm still 5,000 calories over. I'm not kidding when I tell you I had over 10,000 calories in a day on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like it's I could
do it.
And
that's for me, I was angry. I was like angry all the time. And finally I just took, cause all I was doing, like you said, all I was doing is watching those calories on MyFitnessPal. And I remember like talking to some people I knew who did like marathons and stuff, super into fitness. And they started looking at it with me. They're like, oh, because you're taking in horrible calories for the small amount of calories you're giving yourself. And, and so that turned me on like a whole different kind of journey. I'm more like macros based, and honestly, I think of eating as my part-time job with the endurance stuff. My eating is like a whole different thing now because it's like, as you know, doing those kind of events, it's part of your fuel in there. But so you went from counting calories, you're binging at this point. When it comes to eating healthy for you as a musician, as a dude who's trying to get healthy, what was it that helped you find that healthy point and actually start the weight loss journey, but in a healthy way?
Yeah, everything's a journey. Everything is always like, let's do the next right thing. Let's take the next step. And I use that line all the time. It's one of my mantras that I got from Frozen 2, one of the best movies, I swear to God.
I've not seen it. My boys don't want to watch it, and so I've just never sat. They're always like, I'm like, come on, guys, we watch Frozen, because you got to blame it on the kids, right? Anyway, so say that again.
Kids. I watch it for myself.
I love it.
Yeah.
I just need to man up and watch them on my own.
Dude, let's have a watch party, man. Let's do this.
There we go.
But there's some real great wisdom in that, and just do the next right thing is what she says at one point. Like, I don't know what to do next, man. Like, what's the next right thing? So literally, I started walking, and I would walk longer, and then I started running, and then I injured myself running, and then I got back to running, and then I should probably eat better, right? And so I'm doing what everybody says you should do, eating this many whole grains, eat all like these carbohydrates before every run. And when I went to do my marathon, I'd wake up 2 hours early just to have a peanut butter and banana sandwich, fall back asleep for an hour, and then go out to and
dedicated.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Once I'm in, I'm in. But I was still fat. I was still the guy running down the street with that big old belly. Okay, well then what the hell's the next right thing? I'm frustrated. It's whiskey. And so I would go out the deep end again.
Me, it was wine. So I feel you.
Right?
I was like, why can't I lose weight? Yeah. It's because I'm drinking a fuck ton of wine every single night.
That will get you, man. And it's not even just the alcohol, but like the inflammation that it brings with it, then the worst judgments, and then the sleeping in, and then the breakfast burrito to try and heal up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So exactly. You're starting to run, and then you're starting now the next steps of identifying, okay, this is a hindrance, this whiskey. This is my whiskey glass for anyone watching the video. So were there anything else? What were some of the next steps after, it was out the whiskey and those kind of things?
Yeah, it took really like a nutritional overhaul. My wife came home one day. She's like, I heard of this thing called Whole30. What's that all about? And so we tried that out, and that revolutionized a lot.
Okay.
And it's because through a process like that, and what we use with our clients is similar but more robust. And so we're able to pinpoint exactly which foods are going to trigger you, like into some inflammation, or into some emotional eating, or into what are these foods doing to you? Right. So we were able to start pinpointing exactly what works best for us.
Well, and that's what reading about what you do with your clients, I thought it was really interesting and really important that you make it more of an individual thing. I've seen too often, even my own journey. Like for me, I was like keto because everyone I knew was doing keto, and they're having a lot of. And then I did my first half Ironman and almost died. I felt like, because guess what? It wasn't working for my body, and so I switched all those things per my body and per my needs, and found a whole new this is how it can be. I think people miss that in the midst of all the fads. What does it look like for you to identify for people? And maybe you can even start with your own story of that, but maybe for your clients or you, what does it look like to identify this is what is healthy for you and how you're going to feel the best and perform the best?
Yeah. Great question. And so the result that we're looking for, right, is what is going to feel best? What is going to get me to my goals? And like you said, just because your friends were doing keto doesn't mean it works for you, right? If your drummer is vegan, should you be vegan? Maybe. You're not your drummer. You're not even your mom. You guys are different.
My vegan friends want me to be vegan though, but that's
Vegans, I love you. Most of your videos, it's some great stuff.
I do. I've learned, I have a good friend, Eddie, who we met through touring, and he actually challenged, our whole family did a 7 days vegan as a whole family. All my boys, everything. We actually loved it, but I was like, it's not for me, but I learned a lot that I incorporated into my actual diet. But yeah,
and that's the beauty of these different things is and bringing it back to the result that we're looking for, which is how do you figure out what works best for you? You've got to try different things. You need to experiment. For 2 months straight, my wife and I were doing vegetarian dinners. I felt great when I woke up in the morning.
Nice.
No, it was cool. But then I started losing some muscle. Okay, bring me a steak, please.
Need some protein in there. Got to pump it up.
Yeah, right. Protein, right?
Protein. I like that.
So we go through a process of taking out things that are typically inflammatory for most people And then we systematically and specifically reintroduce these different foods, right? So we can see, oh, okay, like cow dairy is going to give you really bad gas. You specifically, that might be your reaction. For me, cow dairy, I feel fine all day till I go to sleep. My nose gets so stuffed up, I can't breathe.
Enter like the mucus and those kind of things kind of fill in from it.
Right. But if I have goat cheese or sheep cheese, totally cool. No problems at all. Right. So we can pinpoint it to this level. You'll enjoy this one. If I am on stage, someone brings up a shot of whiskey and I take that, I forget lyrics within 5 minutes. I've pinpointed it to whiskey and lyrics. Gone. Tequila, on the other hand, no problems. Not a problem at all, man.
Bro, when the tequila busts out for me, there's lots of problems. Whiskey, I could do all night. I'm like, oh shit, someone's bringing out some tequila, but
right, yeah.
So you immediately forget things right at that moment. Okay, so if I'm buying you a shot when you're performing, get you tequila. So.
Yeah, Casamigo Silver, please.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. You all heard it right here. Next time when it opens back up, he's performing. You better be throwing that down for him. Not too much though.
Yeah, I'll take one on stage and one after, and there we go. It comes back to these routines and what works best, and we through that process, then we can start realizing, okay, if this is how I feel on these foods, and I can start to pinpoint these different feelings or different inflammatory reactions that I get, right? Now I can start to use that to better different health foundations. So I know that if I have like a bulletproof coffee in the morning, feeling good, man, no big deal. If I have the same thing past 12 o'clock, I feel lethargic. I don't feel good. It's the same thing that's low in inflammation for me and normally makes me feel great, but the timing of it is off. And then I can say, oh, if I go to bed after 10 p.m., then every time that I wake up, I guess, let me think, what time was it at? When I go to bed after 11 o'clock normally is when the next 2 days are just off. And I found that I'm able to listen to my body that way because of the process of learning how the foods interact. Right. So it's not like I'm just giving you the fish of like, go vegan, or teaching you to fish of like, here is why to do a keto diet. Right. But it's like teaching someone how to hunt and fish and trap and how to come up with their own ways of like incorporating new healthy foundations and really building their best lifestyle. Because every single person has to have something different for fitness, for nutrition, for sleep, for stress, for emotional fulfillment, for their career. Different activities in your life are going to bring you more energy than other ones. Right. So this applies directly to your business too, because if you're sitting on Instagram doing the marketing, you're going out and doing some outreach and meeting people, and it's just draining you. You probably should find something that's not going to drain you so you can sustain your energy through the day. Right. But you can't find those things out unless you've really gone through a process of learning how to listen to your body at that level.
It's interesting. I don't know if this connection works for you, but it almost sounds like it's like meditation with food in a way. Because when I think of meditation, it's about trying to understand my body, what's going on internally, physically, physiologically, but spending the time to really see and really notice and understand how it's affecting you, impacting you. And man, you saying the word lifestyle, that really hits me because I've had a problem with like in the past trying to do those like 30-day challenges or those kind of things where they might be a good like jump start. But what I've seen in my own past, and then I've seen in other people, is like if you do those, often you just fall off, as opposed to finding kind of back to Frozen 2, that the right next step, finding that next thing that's going to help you grow, and it becomes a lifestyle, so that ultimately, we're 70 and we're still healthy. We still can go on a run. We still feel good and still have energy to play with our grandkids. Those kind of things. Where it's like if we have that long term look, it makes all the difference. And that's awesome that you are focusing on that. I love it.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And that literally, like, I love helping people lose weight and feel good right then. But really, our entire goal, the number one thing, and every time a client enrolls with us, I say, like, here's the deal, guys. Like, we're going for sustainability. You are going to lose weight quick. It's what we do. That's fun. That's great. But it doesn't matter unless it sustains. I want you to be living your best lifestyle, like you said, through 70, through 80. Well, I mean, with advances in science, none of us should be dying before 100 unless we accidentally get like hit by a bus, right?
Right.
And,
I just warned my boys. I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to live to like 100, 100 plus. Like the way
oh, yeah.
medicine's going, like you just wait. You just
Yeah. And I'm still going to kick your ass. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so that's the only thing that matters to me, is that these the lifestyle shifts in a way that's sustainable, in a way that makes you feel great, in a way that like it can really make you feel good for the long term, right? It's not just living a long time, but that's lifespan versus health span. I don't want to be 100 years old and like in a wheelchair, decrepit with no brain. I want to be 100 years old going for a run.
Right. There's a guy at my gym. Before we moved, it was a different gym that I'm at now. And I'm like on the bike, and it's this older gentleman next to me, and he just bike along as well. And we start talking, strike up a conversation, and he says something where it made me ask him like, "How old are you?" He goes, "Well, I'm 99." I was like, "No, you're not. No way," because he's like coherent and having great. I think of 99 as like you're on your deathbed,
Yeah.
and like, no shit. Like we got off and he shows me his ID and he's 99. I think it was like 102, 103, something like that. Cause he was there all the time talking to people and like, he was still just getting around, like doing little laps up there. And I was like, I love that. It was one of the first times it made me think like, could I be that guy? Like ultimately that's going to come and there's realities to the way we live in this physical world. But how do you, like, he had so much joy, I remember them posting pictures of him afterwards, like up in the gym, because like that guy brought joy and life to people. And no doubt he had to have some kind of lifestyle choices that helped him get there. And that's cool. It sounds like you're going to be helping the next 99-year-old people who's like making a mid 30 guy at the time go like, shit, I better keep working. This guy's going.
Yeah, man, that's the idea.
Now, so the music world, how long have you been in the music world and playing, performing, doing all that?
Yeah, I started like teaching guitar when I was 15, and I did that for like 14 years. And so I was teaching guitar, bass. I taught saxophone for a bit because I was playing those instruments through school, had bands out like through middle school, high school. And right after high school started the first like pro band where, okay, we're going to go play the gigs. Nice. Let's go do this. So we're doing the weddings, we're doing the bars, we're doing all that kind of stuff. And I kept that going really until basically the pandemic. Right. Like most of us.
Right.
And so that's just the reality of life. And thank God that I had already started this business and was already helping people. And this was thriving at a way that it wasn't like scrambling to make it happen, and if anybody out there was stuck in that, like, I feel for you. I understand. Like, I'm glad that we're all adapting. Right. But the last gig that I played was mid-July.
Wow.
And it was a live stream. It was super cool, like great big setup. John Legend had played the same stage the week before us with the same
Not
like
bad.
So it felt pretty cool for like a rowdy country band. And so it was pretty neat. And I loved it, but it was so anticlimactic. Which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So
what was it that made it anticlimactic for you?
Oh, we were playing so much before, big stages, Vegas, the whole, all the good stuff.
And instead you're just staring at a lens.
Yeah. Right. With our in-ear monitors, there's not even like real noise out and air bumping through or like a crowd cheering. So it's just like, it's all the cameramen here, it's like just us like jumping and me yelling. And so it just felt kind of odd, I guess, you'd say. And so since then, my wife and I there was no gigs. So we just picked up and said, let's just start moving. We're traveling. Nice. So that was, and I'm still playing, like I'm still creating, I'm still doing my own thing, but it's very much, the focus is on helping people lose weight and feel amazing and just enjoying life. We've been given such an opportunity with the whole pandemic. Like obviously there's a shitstorm going on, but we got to take advantage of it. Life happens for us, not to us, so.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because that's a common theme in a lot of my interviews with musicians on this podcast. I have a wide variety of different, backgrounds, but musicians, because so many of us have been completely sidelined, and it opened up this idea of learning to enjoy life in a way. And I think, I know for myself and a lot of other conversations I had, people were starting to realize like, damn, I was always going, I was always on the road, always doing this, always doing that, where it's made me appreciate things in a whole different way. And like you said, like, I know I have friends who are struggling so hard in this, so I don't mean to minimize that, but I know for me, that was a piece that has been a beautiful thing in a way. And like, even down, like, our boys start virtual school. Our boys have been doing virtual school for a full year, and they go back next week. And it was that moment, like, I actually got emotional. My wife was sharing, she's like, I'm kind of emotional about this. Like, our boys have barely left our sides for an entire year. And our oldest is going to be going to college. Like, he graduates high school next December. And so it's like these moments, there were special moments in it, and embrace it. And now, like, tomorrow we're just going to go out and hang out together, all of us. Cause it's like that season of life is over. We still have to be cautious, obviously. Like you said, the shitstorm's still happening. But yeah, those moments, I think, have been beneficial for a lot of people. One thing about the music industry, it's so comprehensive and such a hard industry. And I feel like I love entrepreneurship so much. I've like done my own roofing business, and like we do a commercial cleaning business, like all these kind of things. But I feel like the music industry uniquely, if you let it, can prepare you to do almost any entrepreneurial endeavor you put your mind to. And so I'm curious for you, where did the switch happen where you're like, hey, I'm doing this music thing, but why don't I step out and start this new business?
Yeah. Fantastic question. And it's real near and dear to my heart, because at the heart of it, we talked about how I was the old me, the old version, making all these questionable decisions. And then I figure it out. Like, my wife and I lose a ton of weight. We feel so good, overflowing with energy, just always feeling amazing. Right. And which deepened my relationship with her, deepened my practice sessions with my bass. And I was able to improve on all these levels. And I'm able to show up earlier to the gigs when I wasn't just the late bass player. And I was, staying later to make sure I'm helping clean up, and I'm not just the drunk guy anymore, and I'm able to impact lives differently just from being healthy. And at the end of the night, when people are coming up to you and they're all really drunk from playing from drinking all night, it's the audience or other band members that played earlier or whatever, they come up and drunkenly say, like, I could never do what you do. Like, how did you do that? And I could explain it to them, but they don't remember because they're,
like, let me write it down for you. You just put that in your pocket when you wake up in the morning.
Right. And it was so heartbreaking, honestly, to know that these tools are here and I could shout it from the rooftops, but until someone's ready to change, they won't do it. Right. You say, like, one guy would come up to me on a regular basis and just say, dude, I need to quit drinking. And he's hammered every single show that I played. Yeah,
you probably should.
Yeah, dude. Like, thank you for supporting my band. Like, your bar tab alone probably pays half our, every night. But still, like, I care about you, man. Like, I want you to be better. I want you to feel better. And he would come up and confess that to me on a regular basis at the end of the night. And after seeing that so many times, I just needed to do something. And then it was actually during a 5-day water fast that I was doing that. It was like some sort of like strike of lightning from God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, just like hit my head and just like, do it now, make the change, help people.
That's awesome.
So it just like, I didn't have a choice. It was like suddenly being put on a mission. And that's amazing. And I'm so glad that it happened. Like, I'm so thrilled that happened, because otherwise I was still like, even with this abundance of energy, I still wasn't doing enough with it. I wasn't changing the world. I was still like, all right, I can eat even more because I can run even more because I can.
But it's just that next right step. That's what you were doing, right? You're just keeping going.
Right.
But that's so. Is there like one or two things specifically that you could point to? Sorry, Siri is popping up. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
All right, there we go. But are there 1 to 2 things maybe you could point out that directly correlated? Like, I learned this in my music career, and man, it benefited me to launch this new endeavor.
Definitely. I learned that if I don't learn to take control of myself, right? Not just in nutrition, but in my discipline, then I can never stay successful as a musician unless someone else is making all the moves. Like the drummer for my band is an amazing entrepreneur. And I daily have more and more respect for him because he would make sure that we always had the next gig. We always had the next thing lined up. We always had the next recording session lined up. We always had, he was making that happen. And
Those
I felt
guys
like
are so valuable in a band.
Oh my God.
Whoever
Corey,
it is,
I love you, man. I could never do.
Well done, Corey.
Yeah, the man. And so seeing that and realizing that without that level of discipline, I couldn't succeed in my own business.
That's huge.
Right. So that's one thing that directly correlated. Whenever I went to do my own venture, like when I did voiceover work or when I was playing more solo shows or wanted to do more songwriting, like if I didn't apply that same discipline that Corey was showing, everything would fall flat. And so once I really hammered home and went for it, then things would start to come to fruition. But because you notice those failures and learn from them, that's where it can correlate with any other business.
That's awesome.
You got to do the next right thing. Thanks, Frozen. It goes back to it. But
I love that theme.
You have to do it. You can't think what's the next right thing. You have to do.
Well, and sometimes artists, I can get trapped in this, I'm dreaming it up and thinking about it, which in some ways I think has been a strength of mine where I can see down the road. But the problem is when you never take that next right step to even get on the fucking road, get off the sidewalk or whatever it is to get there. And that's amazing, man. So there was a conversation I had, I think I've mentioned Enrique from Making Movies Again. It's fresh in my mind. We just had a great conversation a few days ago, but he was talking about the concept of self-sabotage. And he actually had talked about even like the drinking on the road and touring, where he shared a story of he had this big gig. The next day it's like an NPR thing out in Washington. I think it was Washington, D.C. And he knew it. And he's like, but we're doing this pickup little gig, and I have free drink tickets. And at this moment, I saw the drink tickets and I was like, fuck it. Everyone's going to bed. I'm going to go party. And he's like, the next day I go to the show. He's like, we did well, but I knew I wasn't full. I wasn't my 100%, it was like 70%, 80%. And he hit me with this thought of like, he's, as he's reflected on it, is he realized it's a self-sabotage thing that he was getting stuck into because he was actually insecure that he wouldn't do well with it. So in a way, it's like, well, if I drank too much last night, I can blame it on that instead of, and it made me think about the times I was drugged by my band out of a hotel room to get up to go play a noon show at a college campus and I'm like, oh God, let's get through this thing. And it hit me. It's like, man, the insecurities of it, self-sabotage. Do you see that a lot in the music world? Would you agree with that statement? I don't know what that would stir up for you, that comment.
Yeah, a lot, man. And yeah, absolutely. I see it. And whether it's in the music industry or in losing weight and changing your lifestyle, it's something that's really, really common. And there's a couple different ways of explaining it. Ed Milet has a really good way that I've heard him explain this internal thermostat. So like a thermostat, you set it in your house and it's going to say, oh, what temperature is it? Let's bring it up to where I set the thermostat. Or if it's too hot, it's going to bring it back down. Everybody has a thermostat setting for every aspect of their life. So when it comes to success, whether it's in your music, on stage, or with your business, you have a thermostat setting that you're used to. If it starts to dip below that and there's not enough like cash flow in your business, then you're going to start to hustle and get it back up to that thermostat setting. If you start succeeding even more and more, if you haven't figured out how to change that thermostat, you're going to self-sabotage to bring yourself back down. And we see the same thing, especially with the people that we work with losing weight. We have to shift this subconscious programming, these things that we have on repeat over and over that set that thermostat, that say, oh yeah, well, I'm used to being 235 pounds. And so if suddenly I'm doing better and better, and I'm down to 215, I'm down to 210, man, I'm crushing it. And whiskey and booze for a whole week straight brings you right back. And so we have to do this subconscious programming to revamp that thermostat setting,
Dude,
to get it to where you're going to stop self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
So it's critical. And the truth is, man, like you're always going to suddenly hit a new upper limit and screw yourself and fall back down.
Man, that I'm getting chills just hearing that analogy, especially as I'm still thinking about the conversation Enrique and I had. Like that is so huge. It made me think about like my first marathon. Like the night before, I stayed up till like 1 a.m. Like, why the fuck did I do that? And it's like, again, it's like I knew it wasn't 100% when I'm starting. But man, that thermostat thing, that's huge. That's super huge. And man, like when I see artists, especially our worlds of you're in and out of bars and clubs, and like you said, you had a guy come, it's kind of part of the reason they hired you, so you can get people to stay there and drink or come out. You live in this world where there's so many opportunities, whether it be drugs or alcohol, whatever, to sabotage yourself. And I wonder how many more successful musicians there would be, because it's so hard to find success in this industry, in the music industry, if those environments weren't there, because it's like, damn, it's just almost too easy, and you got to set your own limits, your own boundaries.
Definitely. And that's a really big struggle, I think, for a ton of musicians and a ton of artists in general, especially because our industry is focused on entertaining other people, right? So your purpose while you're in that venue or recording that song is to help someone else have a good time. And they worked all week. They had all this stuff going on. They're coming to you for a release. And so it's your job to bring the party, to bring that emotional release for them. So if you're not on that vibrational wavelength, it's not going to bring them that level of release. So that means that I need to be the purveyor of the party, which is awesome to help someone have a great night. But when you see the same people doing this over and over, right? And when you see that for me, I struggled with my purpose and like what am I doing here on earth, when I was the one screaming at the audience, drink. And we do this, like in Nashville, you see people do the holler swallow. We would do the same thing, right? So you get everybody to raise their glass, count to 3. Let's all like scream at the top of our lungs and then drink a whole bunch, right?
Right.
And if someone in the audience didn't put their drink up, I would call them out by name and say, drink, motherfucker. What is wrong with you?
And now you're a health coach.
Pellegrino backwards, so it looks like a Heineken bottle, right? And so they don't think I'm the sober guy, right? And so really big disconnect there. But because of that, because we're the purveyors of the party, it drags us into that.
Right.
So by nature of our industry, we're really like putting ourselves in a really vulnerable spot that we have to be so mentally, spiritually, emotionally strong to hold our ground and set those boundaries, like you said. And if we don't have that, then we just fall off. Right. So it's really like a hazard of the trade, as far as I can tell. Every musician that I've talked to, for the most part, has had an issue with this.
And I actually know some who are recovered alcoholics that play in bars still, but for them, they have a very like strict, I don't touch anything, like, and they've found a way to make it work. I think there's probably some who have had to leave that environment. I mean, there's other opportunities to play, like if you can't handle the bar environment, corporate events, weddings, like not every wedding is dry, but there's still a lot of opportunities there. My old bass player, he would never touch alcohol during a show, and he would drink, and it was part of his lifestyle. But during a show, he had just kind of been mentored as he came up. We called him the band whore because he was always in like 8 bands, and but he's like, I learned real quick I couldn't function at my highest level, and so I think it's figuring it. Like for me, it's like, how much am like certain gigs I won't, certain gigs I will. How much will I in the beginning? It's almost making those decisions before you get there help too, because in the moment it's like, all right, free whiskey or free wine, whatever. So now it's you seem to have a very strong command of like your purpose and where you want to go, where you want to help take other people. So it makes me excited to hear your answer to these last 2 questions. It's just the Live and Create podcast, talking about living a great life, creating great things. I'm curious, right now in your life, as you're taking these, next right steps, how would you define living a great life?
Yeah, absolutely. In this current moment today, for me, living a great life is just deeply experiencing.
I like that.
And it sounds kind of like mundane, but I've done too much meditating on it, so I love it. And so
No,
it's
I don't think
literally,
it's mundane at all. I think
yeah.
that's a powerful statement.
And thanks, man. Yeah, and I realized that the more that I search through what really brings me joy, what really helps me make a difference, the more deeply that I experience every moment, every segment of the day. Like every like if my phone's on airplane mode, I'm not going to look at something right now. I'm here for us, right? So we could
Right.
bring more and experience each other and help the audience. And the more that I can experience deeply, the more fulfilled I am and the more that I can bring to the world. And so to me today, that's my one thing for today is to experience deeply. Tomorrow might be a little different. Tomorrow might
Right.
be I'm having some damn tacos. But today it's experience deeply.
Well, and that's where I've actually gravitated to asking, like, right now, how would you define living a great life?
Yeah.
Because even as I'm on the journey myself, figuring those
Mhm.
things out, realizing it does shift and it does
Yeah.
grow and change, and sometimes you revisit things. But there's a spoken word artist named Oddrod, great like artist, man. And during our interview, he talked about simplicity of like right now, and he does videos of it. He has a little, what is it, a veggie cutter, like a vegetable slicer. There it is.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
literally just videotapes himself slicing vegetables to make dinner for that night. And he's like, I'm just learning to love that vegetable slicer. And I'm cracking up because I knew I'd already seen some of his videos online. I'm like, this dude's into this vegetable cutting thing. But then he brings it up on the podcast, and because he wants to experience just even these small little things, and it actually
Mhm.
inspired me because I'm typically trying to fly at like 30,000 feet, thinking through all these things, and I
Yeah.
found this like habanero like sauce that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just fucking enjoy this habanero sauce right now, and like I was like,
Yes.
this is nice, I like
Yeah.
it, and in a way, it almost opens up the rest of your world around you. So
Mhm.
that's awesome, man. Now, as of today, right? How
Yeah.
would you define creating great things?
That's a good question. I'm going to come right back to do the next right thing. Because those are my mantras as of for today is like I need to experience deeply, and whatever the next right thing is, man, I know that because I'm connected to myself, I'm connected to my spirit, connected through the universal juice, whatever you want to call it. Like I can feel that it's going to deliver to me the next thing I should probably do,
Yeah.
even if that thing is kind of detrimental to like my business at the time or to my
Hmm.
health at the time. I have faith that whatever that next thing is, even if it hurts, well, it was probably the right thing as long as I learned from it.
Right.
And you learn more quickly when you experience deeply. So Ray
Hmm.
Dalio says pain plus reflection equals progress. So whatever happens, doesn't really matter as long as you can reflect on it and make progress and use that to choose the next right thing.
That's amazing, man. I love it, dude. Well, let everyone know how they can connect with you, and also if they're interested in signing up for services.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always find up my website, rustyosborne.com. Our business is called Find Your Total Health, totally designed around creating and implementing a system that works for you to live your longest, most healthy life and to lose weight quickly, safely, and sustainably. Once again, bringing it back to that sustainability. We help primarily men lose weight permanently. That's the name of the game. Right. And so you can find me on the website, rustyosborne.com, on Instagram at the Coach Rusty. And if you want to email me, call me, send me a carrier pigeon, I'm sure you can find my number. Go for it. I dare you. So,
And the Instagram is on point, man. I love the clips. It's been inspiring me in my own process and what what the next iteration of the podcast for me looks like. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this, definitely check out the Insta as well. So many great tips in there, and just entertaining. Your stories are great. Like, so I was like, could I get him an actual bouquet of avocados? How would I pull that off?
But you have
but
no clue.
I was like, bro, that's hilarious.
How thrilled I'd
be. Well, man, we can go take our next best steps, and
Yes.
I'm sure we'll connect. Thanks again for making the time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem, man. Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.